Yes, I'm aware that I said in the same breath the best web scraping method still and reference to Selenium, but it's important because we're going to be using a lot of different techniques in this video, so you need to understand why I've made these decisions and how you can change them to fit your scraping project. So as always, we need to make sure that we're actually checking the site out first, and the first part of this video is going to be me having a look and working out where the data is coming from, how I'm going to get it, and what it means to the decisions of the technology that we're going to use. This is a really important step. Don't skip over it, otherwise you could waste time looking for stuff, trying to do the method that's never going to get you there. So what I'm going to do in this video is we want to scrape review data for the products on this page. It's quite a common thing. But once you've got all this data, what are you going to do with it? Well, you need to look at it and interrogate it some way. And if you're wondering what the best way to do that is, the sponsor of today's video is really going to help you out with a really cool free way to learn more about data analysis. Our video today is sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the best way to learn data science, computer science, and maths all interactively. As developers specializing in data extraction, being able to understand the needs of our clients for their analysis is a core skill. And Brilliant's Data Analysis Fundamentals course has really helped me build up my skill set in this area. It's all hands-on and interactive, and a proper learn by doing course that's visual and can be done in bite-sized chunks each day, which is the most effective way to learn. Take the quick quiz when you sign up and you'll be matched with the content that fits your skill level and interests to take you from basics to advanced and develop those new skills. There's new STEM content monthly to satisfy the lifelong learners. My favorite being the new Thinking in Code course for those who aren't quite sure where to start learning programming, that gets you solving real world problems right away. So to try Brilliant and everything that it has to offer for 30 days for free, visit brilliant.org/JohnWatsonRooney or click the link in the description below. The first 200 people will also get 20% off the annual premium subscription. Now let's carry on with our code. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come over to the network tab on my inspect element tool. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger and try not to hide my head behind it. And we're going to refresh the page. And we're looking for a few specific things. The first one is anything that looks like it might be product data or anything that references some kind of JSON. I keep getting this pop up. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. We'll move on. So I'm looking down here and I'm seeing a few different things. We have let's make this full screen so we can check it properly. So here we go. You can see we have some product information and the review information here. Now this is really important because this is exactly what we're after. Now that's probably a bit too zoomed in. There we go. You can see that. Now this response here actually contains a set of the reviews neatly formatted all together. And this is what I mean when you're looking for the API that's providing the front end with its data, because we have here a full URL that contains this JSON information. Now we want to get the JSON data because A, it means we don't have to do any parsing, and B, it's much easier to get all of it in minimal requests. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL and we're going to go and paste it into my browser. Now it's important, my browser is still running the same, I haven't closed it, so we have all of those cookies and everything all stored in the browser, which is why we're able to do this. If we close this, you'll see we have 7 or so items. Looking in the URL, we're doing a tiny bit of reverse engineering on the API here. We have a limit and an offset, which is a really common way of actually returning certain amounts of information through the JSON API. So what we want to do is we want to start changing the limits to different numbers. So I'm going to hit 10, let it load, we get 10. Let's try 20. Still get 10. So maybe if we try 15, still 10. So we know that the maximum limit that this will return is 10. So we want to set our limit to 10. Now the offset is the next load of data. So if we set it to 9, we can see here we get him again. So we want to set it to 10. So our offset is 10. And we should then have offset of 1. Should give us down from Diana to Rick 07. I had my offset set wrong before. So the offset of 1 gives us Rick 07. And then if we go to an offset of 10, we should have him again at the top. So we want to be doing our offset in 10s, but starting at 1. So 11 is going to give us the next load of data. You can see that we have 211. So if we put the offset into actually 210, we should get 1, which is the last piece of data. So we want to be able to mimic this. We want to make this request to the API like this and pull this JSON data down. But if I was to copy this and open up a terminal and do curl and paste this in, we're going to see this error. And that's because we are basically getting rejected. Our request is being rejected. Now, there are a few different ways you can go around solving this. But for ease and use of simplicity, I'm going to choose to use Selenium to load up the browser initially and then loop through these pages using the offset and the limit to pull all of this data back down. Now, as I said, you can do this differently, but this is the easiest way to do it. And I'm actually going to use Selenium Grid as well, which is I have running on my home server. I've done a video on that, which you can check out. But this just makes our life a lot easier. But if we come back to our network response here, you'll notice that in this URL, we have this code here, whereas the actual product code is that we find in the URL is this, which is different. So we've got a problem. We need to actually get this, whatever it is, model number, whatever, for the product that we're going to. And if we come back to the actual main page, you'll see that we have this is how we get to the product. This won't work in that URL. So if I copy that and try to use that as the model, we get nothing. So we need to find out how to get that model number. So back to our inspect element, and now that we know that this is the model number, let's go to the elements and have a search in here. So let's search for it, and we found it. So this is hovering over, so we'll see it's in here somewhere, and we actually have it a couple of times. This one makes more sense. You can see it isn't here. Now within this script tag, again, this is another scraping method that you can use quite a lot, has the what will be valid JSON once we chop the bits off, and it has this model number in it. So I'm going to copy all of this, and we're going to come to our favorite JSON parser online, and we're going to paste it in. Now we're going to get an error, and we've also not copied the whole thing, but that's not important in this case. We're going to remove this, and it's going to give us at least a look at what this looks like. You can see there are no mutations, but we do have this queries, state data, model number. So you can see the ID. This is what goes in the product URL to get the product page. And the model number is what goes in the reviews part to get the review. So there's two different identifiers. So how are we going to handle this? Well, we're going to load the page up. We're going to find this script tag with this model number in. We'll pull that out, and then we'll send it along to the next URL to here to then pull back the review data in this nice, neat format. Okay, so there's quite a lot to unpack there. I'm going to code through this and try and explain it as best as I can as we go through, so you'll kind of understand the decisions that I've made, why I've made them, and the trade-offs against them. So, you know, using Selenium is going to be slower, and then you can figure out which bits might fit into your project or how you might want to do it. So I'm going to come to my terminal. We'll open up a new terminal, and we'll create a new folder. We'll call this one, this will do fine, and we'll cd into that. And then we will do our Python 3 virtual environment. I've actually not had a whole load of success with some of the packages I use with Python 3.12, so we'll use Python 3.11. So we want to pip3 install a few things. We need to use Selenium. And we're going to use Pydantic for the models, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And I've missed the install. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So once this is installed, we can create a couple of files. So I'm going to call my first one main.py, and the second one I'm going to call models.py. And we're going to start off with our models open here. Now, there's a reason why I'm using Pydantic. Not only is it good for handling all your data and managing it, etc., but it's also very good at validating and changing some things. So we'll be able to handle when we're missing bits of data. And for example, if we don't want pieces of information, we can just remove them from our model and they'll get dumped when we try and load it in. Okay, so we want to think about our model here. So I'm going to go back to my offset to just be 1. And we're going to go and copy this whole thing. So we'll go raw, copy, and then we'll come to JSON to Pydantic. This is a great place for putting in JSON data and getting Pydantic models back. There we go. So you can see that we have this information here. Perfect. So I'm going to copy this, and this is going to go into our models file. But obviously there is some stuff that we really just don't need in here. I'm not interested in photos, so we're going to get rid of that. We can scroll down. We need to get rid of this, photos. Badges, not interested. Responses we'll leave in. We'll leave it like this for the moment. We might chop some more out depending on what our data looks like when we get there. And we're going to change the name of this from model to response model or API model. Response model is fine. So we have our Pydantic model set up now to receive in all of the data that we're going to get. Don't need that anymore. From here, let's go back to past. So when we get this data back from here, which is in JSON format, we can just unpack it all into our response model and then have access to all of this, and it's going to handle it all for us. We might need to do some validation, and if we do, we will come back to that and we will add it in here. So this should be fine for our models. So let's open up our main.py file, and we'll do from Selenium, we'll import in WebDriver, and then we'll do from models, we'll import in response model. Okay, I have some issues with this. It does work. I don't know why it's complaining at me though. I'm actually going to close out of this. I'm going to create a tmux session so I can easily flip between different shells, different thingies. There we go. So in this one, we'll have, actually, I'm going to pip install rich just so it's easier to see. I do this quite a lot, so it's easier to see the data that comes back into my terminal. So here we'll have our main open here. Okay, cool. So we've got this one doing nothing. Perfect. So where do we want to start? Well, we want to start at, I suggest, getting the product data, the actual model number, which is here, out of the page. Now, there's a couple of things to note here. Because we're using Selenium, we're going to be rendering the page up, which means we want to be looking in the inspect element to actually find where this is. Whereas if you were to come to the page and then do view page source, you'll find that you might be able to see it in here too, and it will be in a different place. There it is. I've just missed it. So it's the same sort of thing, but it won't work if you were to try and reference this script tag because we're not actually getting this version back. Okay, so let's go ahead and write our first function. So we'll say this is going to be our products data get, and we'll just do pass on this one, and then we'll have our, not that, then we can have our review data get. We'll figure this a bit more out when we get going. Then we'll have our main function, which we'll use to run everything. And then we'll have our if name is equal to main just to handle the running of the program. Okay, so that looks about right. And that should do us fine. So let's start with the product data get. So under our main function, we'll be having our actual connection to our Selenium, our grid. And I'll show you how to do it without grid. But we will take in the driver, which will be an instance of the WebDriver. And from here, we're also going to take in the product ID. We'll call it a product ID, and that's going to be a string. So what we can do is we want to say driver dot get, and we want to get it the URL from here. Let's copy this, paste you in, and we don't need all of that stuff. We just have the product ID can go there dot HTML, I think. HTML, yep, and we need to turn this into an F string. There we go. So that's going to go ahead and go to that page, and then we can find the actual data. So to get to the selector for the script tag, we're going to say that our script tag is going to be equal to driver.find element. I wonder if this works. This is an instance of WebDriver. Find element, and this is going to be by, so we're going to need to import in, let me just remind myself what this is, from selenium.webdriver.common import by, should be a capital B, I think. Module cannot be used as a type. Okay. Okay, well, fine. Then we can have by, and we're going to do CSS selector. And we'll give it the CSS selector there. Okay, so let's find the CSS selector for this. Now, this is a little bit more difficult because this script tag has no identifier and there's a ton of scripts running on this page as we would expect. So how are we going to want to do this? Oh, I've lost the thing. Oh, it was called model number. Model number. Next one. This one. So how are we going to find this? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You could find all the script tags and you could loop through them and then pull something out, or you can go back up the tree and find something you can reference and then just go down from there. So I'm going to copy this and we'll go div dot ID of this. Okay, so here we are. And then we can go down from there. So we do plus, you can just about see this in the bottom, scripts. That takes us down to the next script tag under that element. And then we can do it again, and it'll take us to the next one under that element. So this is now our CSS selector, and this is a great way to test your CSS selectors in your Chrome inspect element there. So this is our CSS selector. Let's paste him in there. And we'll do that properly, please. Okay. So with this script tag, we're going to get back some data. So we want to make this is going to be JSON data. So we'll do import JSON, like so. And then we can do our product info is equal to JSON.load, S for load string, script tag. And you think you might be able to do .text, but you actually can't because this won't return the text. This won't return anything from here. So what you need to do is script tag dot and then do got attributes, get attributes, and then we ask for the inner HTML. This is going to return the whole thing here. But we do have this little bit at the front. Sorry, it's this one here. We do have this little bit at the front. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try this and we'll copy this out and we'll do dot replace. So if you find this, we'll replace it with nothing like so. Let me format this. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because these are just going off the page a little bit and it's a bit untidy. Okay, so what we want from here is the actual model number. So our model number is equal to, and this product.info is now a dictionary, so we can just reference this as such. So I think it was queries was the first one. Let's double check. Come back to our JSON parser. Queries, state, queries, and then it's a list. So queries, first index, state, data, model number. Okay, let's see if I can remember that. Queries, state, data, model number, like so. Then from here, we now have the model number that we need, so we can just return our model number like so. Okay, so that was quite a lot to digest initially, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take our WebDriver, we're going to load up the page, we're going to go to the product ID page, and then we find the script tag using our CSS selector by finding the two above it and then going down one. That's what the plus means in CSS selectors. And then we're going to load the script tag with the get attribute because you can't do .text, it will just return nothing. Replacing out the start part, which obviously isn't JSON, with nothing and loading it into product info as JSON, and that becomes a Python dictionary, which we can then query to get the model number. Seems to be quite a lot to do that, but however, with that model number, we are now free to go ahead and just start requesting pages of reviews. And because we've already going to have loaded up our web page, to zip through these where, you know, it's just one page of a small amount of JSON is really quick to load and really quick to get through and then pass out. So it's not too much of an issue. So I want to check that this function is working. So we want to come to our main now, and we want to say we want to connect to our Selenium grid so we can actually work through and actually connect and then open the browser and do all that stuff. So to do that, we do options is going to be equal to WebDriver dot Chrome options, and then driver dot, and then driver is equal to WebDriver dot remote. And then we have the command executor, which is our Selenium grid URL, which is going to be on my local machine, 1144 is grid. And then the options going to be equal to the options we've just stipulated above. Now, I'm using grid, which is remote. If you don't want to use grid and you just want to run it as a Selenium browser, you can just replace this WebDriver remote with the normal Selenium instance. However, on this website, I found that if I ran this in headless, I didn't actually get anywhere. I got blocked or whatever. So that's why passing it off to my grid, which can run it not headless, seemed to work best for me. And also, when we run it on the grid, we have access to multiple instances of Chrome browsers. So we could thread this and have multiple products going at the same time. But we aren't going to cover that in this video. I've covered that in my grid video, which you'll find on my channel or somewhere else linked. Okay, so now we have the driver, which is going to connect to our Selenium grid. Let's create a products list so we can go through them. We'll just have one in there for the moment, which is going to be this one. So we just need this code because that's what's going to go in the URL. Then we can do, let's move this to the middle of the screen. For product in products, and we'll say our model number is going to be equal to, what do we call this function? Product data get. And we give it the driver so it can actually use Selenium, and then the product like so. And then we'll just print out the model number. Okay, so I've done quite a lot of coding without running any of this, so I'm fully expecting to find some kind of issues when we get there. No big deal, we will sort them out. Main is main, super. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over to my other terminal, my tmux session, and we'll run our main function. Let's see what we get to. Can't import name by from Selenium. Okay, no problem. I must have done that wrong. Let's go back up to the top. And that's because I've missed .by. Here we go. Okay, let's try again. We should get some information back, hopefully. There we go. So it worked. Now, obviously, it did take a while because we had to load the whole browser up, and it's going to take that time every time we want to actually create and run the browser. But as I said earlier, when we actually want to use the browser and flick through those JSON pages, it's going to be much, much quicker. So now I know that I'm getting the model number back here, and it's working fine, we can actually start to do something with it. So let's build out our review data get function. So this is going to take in the driver as well. Driver. And the model number here. From here, we want to actually get the total number of results. Now, the total number of results was in our, I don't have it open, model. Oh, wrong thing, models. So our total number of results is actually here, but we need to request the page first. So this is the URL that we're going to hit. So we need to request this page first to get the total number of results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL and then go back to our main file. And what we're going to do, we'll say, and we'll do our URL is going to be equal to this. And I'm going to change the model number into an F string. So model number. So we are going to do a bit of duplication here, but this seems to be the best option, I think. I looked at passing it out of the page, but because I had it already there in JSON format, it just makes sense to do it this way. So we'll say our, we can actually just go ahead and do driver.get our URL. And then we want to find the text for this. So I'm going to change the limit to 1 because we don't need all that extra data. And then let's just do print driver. No, we want to do driver dot, is it HTML page source, I think is what you usually see the whole thing with. Okay, we'll run and we'll see what we get back. Okay, so you'll see here that we actually get this back, which is the JSON data that we were looking at for, but surrounded in these HTML tags. So we basically want to use this pre tag to get the text within it. And to do that, we want to do our pre is going to be equal to, for the pre tag, driver dot find element, and then we'll do by, and it will be tag name, just because that's the easiest one to go for here. And it will be pre like this. And I will ask for the text of that element. And then we can do data is equal to JSON dot loads, the pre here, and we will print out, excuse me, the data. Now we do have to jump through a fair few hoops for this. It's not ideal, but it will work for us. Okay, so let's try running this now, and we should hopefully get a good amount of data, the good data back, which we can then query against to get the total number of results. Perfect. So we should now be able to just do this, and we should be able to print out data total results like so. And we will just double check that's right. And then we're going to have an actual number back for the total number of results for reviews for that product, which we do. Fantastic. What that means is we can now create a range. So I don't need to print this out, and I need to call this total results. So now we can do for, and we'll say offset in range 1, 2. The upper limit that we want is the total results. So I'm going to do int total results, and the offset is 11, as I showed you earlier. If we go 10, we get the duplicate. So now we have this, we can actually do, I'm going to reuse the URL here. So I'm actually going to put the offset in at the moment. And we'll do offset, so we can reuse this URL. And we'll say our original offset is 1. So we can just reuse this URL. So now we can say driver.get the URL, and this should take in the model number and the offset, and then we can actually get our data back. We still need to do this again though. That's not much of an issue. I guess we could have abstracted this off into a different function, but I'm okay with it. We're going to just do this. So we'll copy this line because it'll have the same issue. And then I'm going to say our model data, just so it's clear what I'm looking at, is going to be our response model. And this is where we can unpack. We need to put this into JSON first, and then we can unpack the data. And this is now going to give us, and let's print out our model data. This is going to give us the response data that we created in our models, if I can go back to the file, in a nice, neat, pedantic way. We might come across some issues, but we'll cross those when we get there. So let's run this again. I don't know if I saved it. Okay, we don't want to make a directory. We want to run the thing main.py. Okay, let's see where we're at. So we're loading the initial page, which takes a little bit of time. Int must be not a dict. Okay, I've made a mistake there. That's fine. I forgot to do total results, and we forgot to index the key, which I removed of total results like that. Cool. That should fix that problem. So let's try again. So here's all of our models coming back. And I'm just going to close this. I'm going to stop this, and we're going to come back over here, and we'll do one more thing. The reason why I install rich every time is because of this. So we'll do from rich import print. Cool. One more go, and we'll see that those models come back real nice and easy and real nice looking, so we can work with them really nice and simply. There we go. Okay, so one more thing that we didn't do is we are just printing the model data, but within that model data are multiple reviews. So we want to do for review in model data dot reviews, and we'll print out review dot title. Let me just double check. So you can see when we were printing everything out, we were printing a whole list of reviews, but this time around we're going to loop through the review list and we'll print out the title instead. And that should work for us. So we'll go back to our main function, our main here, and we'll save this. And let's clear that up and rerun it. And we should get every review coming through now rather than the list of chunks which we couldn't see in my terminal. Do not buy. Okay, so we've made a mistake somewhere else here. Let's go back to our code. I can spot an error there. So I don't know if that was causing us the issue, but let's double check because I missed the T off newest. So I wonder if it wasn't sorting it. Okay, no, we are basically getting the same one back every time. So we've done something wrong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this out again and we'll paste this in here. And we'll do driver.get like this instead, and we'll see if that makes a difference. I really thought it would work the other way around. Maybe it doesn't. There we go. Let's try this. Always get some issues. So hopefully we get different ones now. There we go. Okay, that was the problem. So this is every review coming through now, and that was the title. Except we didn't seem to get them all. Okay, I think I might have, wow, changed the limit to 10. So we actually go through it every time. Oh dear. Talking about reverse engineering API URLs, and I've just made an absolute hash of that. Hopefully now, there we go. There we go. They're all different. Perfect. We even had a thumbs up emoji in that one. Fantastic. We're making progress. We are making progress. What I want to do now is I want to show you though how to do some validation on this. So if we copy username here and do model main rather, and instead of this we'd print out lost it, user nickname like this, and we go and run again. Hopefully it will come through on the terminal, but we'll see that we have some that are blank and we need to handle these. So you can see that some of these have an interesting thing in there. So what I'm going to do, so you can see that one says 7.5. What I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to go to my models and I'm basically just going to say, I'm not sure we really care too much whether this is here. So we'll say optional string, the person's nickname is irrelevant really to me. So we'll say optional string is equal to none. And we do have optional imported. So that should sort that one out. But there is going to be one other issue. So I'm going to come back to my main file and we're going to print out review.text, which is the main body of text. And let's go ahead and not do that. This one, please, and we'll run it again. And we'll see, hopefully in the terminal, we'll be able to tell, but there's going to be lots of new lines coming through in the reviews text itself. And that's going to cause us a lot of issues. And in fact, if we can actually see it in here, where people have put in new lines, hopefully, I wonder if I can search for it, /n here. So this is going to cause us issues when we come to exporting this data, and we're going to export this into a CSV file. So this is going to cause us problems. Now we can solve this by going back to our models again, models, and we're going to use a validator on the review field here. I'm on the text field. So we'll do @field validator from Pydantic import field validator. So that's going to go in the top. And this is going to be on the text field. Then we say we define our remove, or we'll just call this clean. And we'll say that this is going to take in the CLS, I think, for the class representation, and then the value. And then we're going to return value.replace any \n characters with nothing. And then we'll do .strip. Now, .strip, please. I suppose this is kind of technically validating and kind of not, but it is in a way. So this kind of does work. If you're just doing .strip, look in the Pydantic documentation because there's a better way to do that. But to replace the blank lines, the new line characters, sorry, I found that this was the best option that I could see. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to format this file and we're going to save this, come back to our main, and we're going to go now and move on to actually looking at how we want to save the data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a CSV file per product, and we're going to actually append reviews to it as we go through. So to do that, I want to yield out the review here. Now, yield will turn this function into a generator function, which means we can actually loop over it inside our main function and then grab the data out and add it to the CSV as we go. So we want to do, I'm going to print the review so we can see something working, and then we will yield review out, not like that. We'll then create a new function which will be save to CSV. This is going to take in the product name, I think. Yeah, we'll take in the product and also then the review itself. So let's make this a bit easier to see. So as we're going to be using the dictionary writer, we'll need to have field names, and we're not actually going to use them. You could mess around and create it that way if you wanted, but just for simplicity, I never bothered. So we'll do review.dict.keys like this, and then we can do with open and product, which is the product. They're going to be the product name that we're going to pass in, and we want to do .csv, and we're going to open this in A for append, that's F, and then our writer is going to be equal to csv.dict writer and F and field names, and we need to import CSV. I don't know why it doesn't like to auto import CSV for me. There we go. Let's go back down again. And then writer.write row review.dict. Okay, so hopefully that will work. We need to then change our main function. So we're doing our review data get here, which is now going to be a generator function, which is going to yield a review every time. So we can now do for review in review data get, like so. And then we can have save to CSV, and we'll pass in the product, which is going to be from this list. So it's going to be a string, which will work just fine. And then the review data itself. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out and we're going to have a quick overview of this, and then we'll run it, fix any issues. So we have to ignore this. I don't know why that's doing it. We're getting the product data so we can get that actual model number, which we can then pass into the review URL with our offset to get all of the reviews, which we yield out, and then each one saves to CSV, so we append as we go through. Then we have our products here, and of course I'm using Selenium Grid for reasons I explained earlier. Right, let's see what issues we need to fix by running the program. And anything that comes up we can sort out. So hopefully we should get them printed. Yep, they're coming by. So this means that they're working. They are being added to the CSV file. And if I go ls now, we have a CSV file, hp7csv. And the data is all in here, you can see. And we should have, if I go to the bottom, so we picked up 193 lines. So I think I've done something wrong with my offset. That would need fixing. But basically we should have 210. So I would need to sort that out. But you can see here, this is how I've gone about this. You can see how I've looked and found the API. You can see how we could add more products to this. Let me go back and just, I want to fix my thing. Should this be 10? We'll find out. And we'll just remove our So yeah, so you can see how I've looked at the website. I've found the API that we want to remove, that we want to work with, how we want to get the data. I've made a decision on the technology that I've used to do so. 212, okay, that's better. So I've made a decision on how I want to actually get this data using Selenium in this case. Now, as I said, there are other ways, but this is just how I've decided to do this, and I think it works pretty well. It's not that slow considering what we're doing, and with the grid option here, we could, of course, add more products and send them off to threads to open more browsers and do it that way. So hopefully you guys have found something in here that you might have not known before, or learned something from, or anything along those lines, or at least enjoyed the video. It's been quite a long one, but I really did quite get into doing this, and I really wanted to show you everything that I did to get this data out, especially things like this CSS selector, the attribute inner HTML, and all of this cool stuff. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe and like the video. It really helps me a lot. Don't forget to jump in the Discord as well. Loads of cool conversations going on there. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.